Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack one of the most fascinating, yet honestly, frequently misunderstood periods in ancient history. We always hear about the mighty Mauryan Empire, and we definitely hear about the golden age of the Guptas. But what actually happened in the centuries between them? A lot of people just assume it was some fragmented dark age. But as the historical record clearly shows, this multi-century transitional period was incredibly dynamic. It wasn't an end at all. It was actually a sweeping cultural and economic reorganization that shaped a brand new India.
To really understand this massive transformation, we have to start with a single, highly dramatic moment. The year is 185 BCE. Just imagine the sheer grandeur of Pataliputra. Emperor Brihadratha, the very last of the Mauryan line, is inspecting this massive military parade. He has absolutely no idea that this is going to be his final public appearance. Standing right behind him is his own commander-in-chief, Pushyamitra Shunga. And in a totally shocking move, right there during the military review, Pushyamitra assassinates the emperor and instantly claims the throne for himself.
Section 1. Fall of the Mauryan Empire. This sudden assassination wasn't just the bloody end of a single king. In a matter of moments, a massive, sweeping political era completely collapsed.
Let's move to end and see how this builds. Over the next few minutes, we're going to view this era sort of like a chronological relay race. We're going from the sudden fall of the Mauryas in 185 BCE straight into the rise of regional powerhouses like the Satavahanas in the 1st century BCE, then the peak of the Kushans in the 1st century CE, all the way to the 4th century CE, which perfectly sets the stage for the Guptas. Section 2. Shungas and New Challenges. Okay, let's jump right into the immediate aftermath of that assassination. Pushyamitra Shunga has the throne, but he's basically inherited a fractured and severely weakened empire.
Pushyamitra quickly realized that winning a crown is one thing, but actually keeping it is a whole different story. The Mauryan grip on the borders was totally gone, and this massive power vacuum, it immediately attracted foreign attention. Indo-Greek rulers from Bactria, the successors of Alexander's campaigns, started advancing from the northwest. And they weren't just looking for some extra land, they were hungry for India's incredibly fertile plains and highly lucrative trade routes. Pushyamitra had to instantly reorganize his entire administration and fiercely defend central India from these advancing armies.
Now, we have to act as historical detectives for a second here. Did Pushyamitra Shunga violently persecute Buddhists? Well, Buddhist texts, like the Divyavadana, claim he absolutely did, destroying monasteries, even putting a bounty on monks. But contrast that with the actual archaeological evidence. Major Buddhist monuments, like the spectacular stupas at Sanchi and Bharhut, were actually expanded and highly developed during the Shunga period. Because of this really stark contradiction, historians have to be incredibly careful not to jump to absolute conclusions, and it's a great reminder that history is so often constructed from conflicting perspectives.
Section 3. Satavahana Empire in the South. After about 3 decades, Pushyamitra's reign ended, and eventually his dynasty fell to the short-lived Kanva dynasty. But while the north was tangled up in political instability, a formidable new powerhouse was rising up south of the Vindhya Mountains.
Down in the 1st century BCE, a ruler named Simukha laid the foundation for the Satavahana Empire. They set up their capital at Pratishthan, right on the banks of the Godavari River. But what made them so powerful wasn't just military might, it was brilliant geography. They basically organically unified the Deccan region into a single political entity that sat directly on the crossroads of the north, the south, and those highly coveted western coastal trade routes.
And the scale of this global trade was simply staggering. The Roman Empire was absolutely booming, and their appetite for Indian goods was virtually insatiable. Ships were constantly crossing the Arabian Sea, loaded with Indian spices, black pepper, cotton textiles, and ivory. And in return, a literal river of Roman wealth flowed right back into the Deccan. We know for a fact this happened because archaeologists just keep digging up hordes of Roman gold coins across South India. This booming commerce proves that India wasn't just some local power. It was a central, beating heart of global trade.
But, as is pretty much always the case in history, immense wealth inevitably brings conflict. Enter the Shakas, also known as the Western satraps. These were originally nomadic warriors from Central Asia who migrated down south through the mountain passes. And they didn't just want territory, they wanted control of those unbelievably wealthy ports on the western coast. This put them on a direct collision course with the Satavahanas. It was an absolutely brutal fight for economic supremacy.
Right in the middle of this chaotic struggle, the Satavahanas found a genuinely legendary leader in Gautamiputra Satakarni. He completely turned the tide. He decisively defeated the Shakas, reclaimed all those vital trade routes, and expanded the empire from the Narmada River all the way down to the deep south. There's this quote, inspired by the famous Nasik inscription commissioned by his mother, that perfectly captures his immense prestige. Claiming his horses drank from the waters of 3 oceans, that was the ultimate statement of absolute regional dominance.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when a society is stable and, quite frankly, incredibly wealthy. The Satavahanas didn't just build massive armies, they funded an unprecedented cultural renaissance. They provided royal patronage across Buddhist, Jain, and Vedic traditions all at the same time. These different faiths literally flourished side by side in harmony. The jaw-dropping rock-cut architecture of the Nasik, Karla, and Baja caves stand today as physical proof of this era's immense prosperity and religious tolerance.
Section 4. Kushans and the Silk Route. Let's pass the chronological baton back up to the northwest. Around the exact same time the Satavahanas were peaking, a nomadic group from Central Asia called the USG were migrating, settling down, and transforming themselves into the mighty Kushan Empire.
The absolute zenith of Kushan power came under Emperor Kanishka in the 1st century CE. His resume is honestly staggering. He expanded his borders to cover Central Asia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and North India. He built a bustling capital at Purusharapura, which is modern-day Peshawar. But beyond just military conquest, he was a major patron of religion. He famously convened the 4th Buddhist Council in Kashmir, which actually helped systemize and rapidly spread Mahayana Buddhism all across Asia.
So the crucial point here is why the Kushans were so incredibly powerful. It all came down to geography. They were the golden nexus. The Kushan Empire sat squarely on the Silk Route. They were essentially the toll keepers connecting the Chinese, Indian, Iranian, and Roman civilizations. This geographic luck brought in unbelievable, unprecedented wealth, which they very proudly minted into these spectacular gold coins, showcasing all their cosmopolitan influences.
Section 5. Confluence of Culture and Trade. And that brings us to perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this entire epoch. When empires built safe roads for trade, they don't just move silk and spices, they move people, and they move thoughts.
This Silk Route was practically an active superhighway for human knowledge. You had Indian monks braving freezing mountain passes to carry Buddhist philosophies directly into Central Asia and China. Advanced Indian concepts in mathematics, medicine, and philosophy were being exported outward. And simultaneously, Greek and Roman artistic techniques were flowing right inward to India. It was a massive intellectual exchange that literally changed the direction of human civilization.
There is honestly no better physical representation of this cultural collision than Gandhara and Mathura art. By blending deep Indian spirituality with highly detailed realistic Greek aesthetics, the artisans of this era created the very first lifelike human statues of the Buddha. These completely distinct, distant cultures merged together to create an artistic legacy that was not only entirely new, but incredibly enduring.
Section 6. Dawn of a New Era. As we all know, the only true constant in history is change. By the 3rd century CE, shifting global trade routes and a succession of weaker leaders slowly caused the mighty Kushan central authority to wane.
Now, you might look at the 3rd century and see only the fall, just a subcontinent fragmenting back into smaller, unstable states. But the true takeaway is the legacy they left behind. This transitional period was absolutely not a dark age. Yes, the political maps were certainly being redrawn, but the underlying society was now deeply interconnected, culturally enriched, and economically primed. The heavy infrastructure of roads, trade, and ideas was already completely baked in.
And this exceptionally rich soil is exactly what allowed a new power to sprout in the 4th century CE. The Gupta dynasty began to rise in North India. And you know, they didn't start from scratch. They built their magnificent golden age directly upon the economic and cultural foundations that had been meticulously laid down by the Shungas, the Satavahanas, and the Kushans over the previous centuries.
Which really brings us to the core theme of today's explainer, captured perfectly right here. Change is the greatest power of civilization. Every end prepares the path for a new era. History isn't just a list of who won which war. It's the continuous story of merchants, monks, and ordinary people weaving a massive web of progress, even when the political empires around them are falling apart.
So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. We look back at this period and realize that what probably felt like total chaos to the people living through it was actually the foundation of a forthcoming golden age. If that's true for ancient India, what hidden transitions and chaotic shifts are silently shaping the foundation of our world today? Keep that in mind next time you look at the news. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.